How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Treehouse. Treehouse, this is Into the Dark Season 1, Episode 6, and Into the Dark was Blumhouse TV and Hulu's attempt to give us a new horror movie every single month. This one came out in March 2019. March? Isn't that St. Patrick's Day? Why is this not a Leprechaun movie? Whatever, it's not. This is directed by James Roday. I believe nowadays he's going by his full name, James Roday Rodriguez. Credited here simply as Roday. But you guys know him as Sean from Psych. Psych was a pretty fun TV show. Detective with a quirky personality who has to pretend to be a psychic and, going around Santa Barbara solving murders. If you want kind of an upbeat mystery show, definitely check out Psych. But anyway, this movie stars Jimmi Simpson. Jimmi Simpson, I'd seen him in a lot of things. He's always usually pretty good. One of the McPoyle brothers from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So cool to see him in a starring role here. We also got Sophia, Pizzo, and Sutton Foster in this movie. And overall, this movie does have some things I like in it. For example, in the horror sequences, there's some cool costumes that I think are really creepy looking. Sadly underutilized, but still really cool costumes. Also underlit, so you don't really get to see them good, but whatever. And also you do get some of that quippy psych humor, but sadly, even though this does have a little bit that I do like, the first half of this movie really takes a long time getting to where it's going, and when you finally get to the exciting second half, it really just has poor pacing and plot structure, and yeah, that's pretty sad. You get the first half where it's like, okay, yeah, there's this quippy psych-style humor, but nothing is really happening for like half this movie. And then when stuff finally happens, when we get to the second half, the horror section, he's captured for a long time. And, capture, little bit of a chase, and then a dumb explanation that the ending of this movie overly explains everything, and it is drug out to heck, man. So, yeah, not a big fan of that. And also, I do want to say, this isn't a Treehouse movie. Okay, the Treehouse does have a point. It is in there a little bit. We go inside of it once, and then we find out an important part of the story happened at the treehouse at one point in time. But that's it. It'd be like if Citizen Kane was called Rosebud or something. And the thing is, a cool treehouse is cool. And the set design on this, it is a really cool looking treehouse. And when you first see it, which it does take a while to see it, you see it and go, oh boy, I can't wait till that comes into play. And we only really get to go in it like once, I think. And you had a whole generation of people who grew up with The Simpsons' Treehouse of Terror. I would love to see a cool Treehouse horror movie. It's the title, it's in a lot of the promotional material, barely in the actual movie. This is not a haunted house, but it's a Treehouse horror movie. That is simply not the case. And just from an audience member looking at the description and deciding to click on it, I'm gonna tell you, that's pretty disappointing. Can someone tell me if you guys know of a legitimate Treehouse haunted house movie, because now I really want to watch one. But anyway, in order to describe how this movie doesn't work and analyze it a little bit, I'm going to talk a bit about the plot. Now, I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, and I do want you guys to have a basic understanding as to what this movie's about, but I won't go so far as to talk about the end, and I will slow down and break this movie down every so often. Anyway, we open up with a chef. That's our main guy, and he is in the universe of the movie as is a Gordon Ramsay knockoff. Sadly, we don't get to see him explode. That was the fun of Gordon Ramsay. We get to see him be angry a little bit, but man, compared to what we've actually seen from Ramsay, it's nothing. So he's a Gordon Ramsay knockoff. He has a TV show, but he's kind of unsatisfied. Turns out his ex-wife is getting remarried, and he's sending his daughter away to go to his wife's wedding, and why he's alone and not in the best headspace, he decides to retreat to his family home. Big mansion in the middle of nowhere. When you're there, you meet his sister. You also meet his maid, who is one of the best characters in this movie. A really gruff, angry maid that will tell it like it is, and yeah, she's the best character. But we find out that before the dad died, he got obsessed with painting creepy pictures. We also get this little bit where one of his friends is still in town, and they talk about him and his life and where they were in high school, and it doesn't amount to terribly much. But then you get this bit where he meets the neighbors that are staying next door. Turns out their power's out, and he does this whole thing where he gives them candles, and then he says, hey, come over to my place for dinner, I'll cook you a special meal. And he's being really nice. And then when they're over, they start discussing, hot button topics like you'd see on Twitter, where they're talking about feminism, and one of them's like, oh, if I have a baby, what does it mean for my career? And then the maid has to say, back in my day, I never really had a voice. And there, it's nothing really new, and I feel it's just, hey, if we talk about these topics and, play into this theme, then maybe that will get people interested in it, but it's nothing that you haven't heard already, so they're talking about these things, and then you look at the movie, and you realize you're like 45 minutes in, and nothing really has happened. Is this a horror movie? What's going on? Quippy guy retreats to family home and invites the neighbors over for dinner where they talk about politics? Really, if you just showed me this section of the movie, other than a few clues that are sprinkled in, it doesn't really feel like a horror movie. Yeah, they had to do a few scenes, like at one point he opens up a toilet bowl, sees that it's full of blood, goes ew, and flushes it, but that's about the extent of the horror in the first half of the movie. And it's not one of those fun, dusk till dawn, all of a sudden we're in a horror movie type deals. It really just feels like a different movie that just suddenly becomes a bad horror movie, So this first half, I'm just watching it going, the characters are fine, the main guy, Jimmi Simpson's funny, the maid's funny, but where the heck are we going with this movie? And the first half just truds along, it feels like one of those boring dramedies that your artsy friend would recommend and you have to tell him that it's bad. But overall, the first half just chugs along, but then he wakes up from being drunk and finds that he's been kidnapped by a cult. Now, after they wasted the first half of this movie, the second half, sadly, he's captured for most of the time. And let me tell you, he's in bed, he's in one room for a lot of what's left, but it is no misery. Well, I mean, it's misery, but not the movie misery. It is just, yeah, you think, okay, now we're at the scary part, but again, not terribly much happens. Every now and then we might get a chase or something, but it's like we're finally at the scary half, and he's in bed with a big comical chain and collar on, and whatever. But the thing that really does break this movie, the kicker, it turns out this cult wants revenge on our main character because he's committed various cases of sexual assault throughout his career. All of the sudden, out of nowhere, your main guy is a bad guy. He's a jerk. There was maybe a few lines earlier in the movie to kind of hint at this, but it wasn't like he was evil or anything before. It's just you get to the second half of the movie and all of a sudden the character's evil now. And it's like, whoa, this came out of nowhere. It doesn't feel earned. It just happened. And I really didn't like that. But then also, who am I following now? Because at this point in the movie, it's him, and he's evil, and the witches, who are set up as an antagonist. Who am I following? Who am I rooting for? And then you realize he starts to make excuses, and he keeps quipping, and I'm like, oh no, we're still following this guy. Like, I don't want to follow him. He's a jerk. Why is he still the main character? You know, this would have worked if there was some other third character that was really the main character. Like, I don't know. But all of a sudden, this character who the first half of the movie was just a jokey, quippy guy, he was shown to be nice because he made everybody dinner, and he was legitimately concerned, like when his maid was in poor health or something, he said, hey, are you doing okay? Maybe we can get you some help with a doctor, or do you want a vacation? This guy seemed legitimately nice, and it didn't feel earned that all of a sudden we reveal he's evil, but then we have to, once we know this, stick with him and continue to follow this guy? Oh man, that is broken. But anyway, like I said, throughout the end, he's captured for a lot. Those hot button Twitter topics they continue to casually discuss every now and then because there's witches in this movie and magic evil spells, and we're still talking about Twitter things, you know? So that still happens. There's a bit of a chase. There's some parts, you know, like I said, the costuming is pretty cool, but they don't use it enough, and every now and then there'll be a fun bit, but it's not near enough, and it's just a sloppy horror movie that is completely unrelated to the first half of this movie, and yeah, I didn't like that. But also, I won't spoil it, the ending of this movie. The ending of this movie does one of those twists that I'm not a super big fan of, but okay, you want to do this twist. They explain every little detail of the plot the whole movie. The twist goes on way too long, it's way too over-explained, and the ending of this movie, you know that ending scene in Psycho where they have to explain everything to the audience? It is much worse and longer than that. Like, oh my gosh, we're not babies. I think I could have figured it out. Just show us the big stuff, get it over with, and then do a dumb ending and we're done. But no, dumb and overly explained and drawn out. Whatever. So basically with this movie, you get a first half with a fun character or two, but it goes nowhere. Then the second half, no good characters, retroactively ruins the character from the first half, and is just a sloppy, bad-paced, nothing much happens horror movie. So yeah, this one just didn't pan out. Now that being said, this happens with Into the Dark from time to time, where a movie just doesn't work, and I don't think it's my least favorite Into the Dark. I think that still goes to a nasty piece of work, because absolutely nothing happened in that one, and in this one we still at least get some of that humor, and we do get some of the horror element that worked, but overall, not a fan of this one. Anyway, yeah, can't really recommend this one. I wish they just gave us a Treehouse horror movie. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Hulu playlist, where I've talked about several entries in Into the Dark already. I think there's at least 8 in there, and I hope to add more. I think there's a total of 24. Hopefully I can get to all of them. There are some good ones. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Hulu playlist on the bottom. More Into the Dark there. Have a good day now.